All right, everybody. Welcome to our tutorial that we're going to walk you through today on how to create the postcard that we're looking for. So the first thing, I went to Unsplash and grabbed this image from Florence, Italy. I also grabbed another image that I kind of like from Florence. So we're going to start with that, and we're going to open up Pixlr. So pixlr.com, and then you can go to Pixlr E, or if you have it saved, you can just jump onto Pixlr E. I'm going to then create a file. One of the little things here, I'm going to actually just create a new file because I want it to be the right size. Call this postcard. Right, so I'm creating that, and now I'm going to open two images. One will be the background image, so that would be the first layer, and I downloaded this for the background, basically a texture. I lived in Florence, Italy, so I had this wonderful chance to kind of spend a bunch of time. Actually, I lived a couple blocks away from this church, and so when I was living there, obviously that would be a place that I would send a postcard from and say, "Wish you were here," kind of idea. So you can see here, I zoomed out a little, and I'm going to bring this out so it fills up that picture plane. And this is just going to kind of be a background texture. I'm going to bring this layer just down to the bottom, just so that it's there. And then I'm going to bring in the next image, which is the image I want to sit on top of the postcard. So if I go to File, Open Image, I'll actually go back. I'm just going to do it this way. So there's this little fancy plus sign in your layers palette, and then you can bring in an image like that. So now I'm going to bring in that second image, which is of the beautiful kind of downtown area of Florence, Italy. And when that's coming in, I think it's important to notice, number one, how big it is. So that'll have to get adjusted. Now, as I'm adjusting it, it's going to be really long. And if I'm on a layer, I can just simply do a selection, because I don't know, it's actually not too bad. I might do it a little bit though. So if I'm on this layer and I would press the crop button, that'll crop the whole thing, right? Even if I'm just on that layer. But if I need to, and I'm selecting that layer and I want to crop a little bit out. So let's say I went like this, and I basically am selecting this part of the picture. Then I'll go to select, invert selection. And this would just be if you want to make your images different sizes. Then I inverted it and deleted a little bit. So then this is here, right? If we want to rotate it just a little, you could. And so you have this postcard basically on top of this background, and we need to have it pop out of the background. So we're going to add a drop shadow. And how to do that? Number one, you could add a stroke to the outside of your postcard, which would just basically make a little line around it. So maybe let's do that, but with a white. So it's nice and clean. I don't want the stroke to be too big, just a little bit. So it pops out, and you could change the opacity down if you wanted to. I kind of like it nice and bright, and that would just be the outline or the fill. Okay, so now I have a stroke on the outside of it. The next step is going to be to add a drop shadow. So if I go to filter, and I'm on this layer, you can see here that I have drop shadow, outline, bevel. These are the three main kind of outer glow, inner glow. Basically ways to set things out from the background. So I'm going to click drop shadow, and you can see here the opacity is low, and you can barely see it. I'm going to move it over here just so you can see. This is the drop shadow. I don't want it that far out, but I have the opacity pretty high now, and I actually want it to kind of live below and over. I'm going to lower the opacity so it's not so obviously a drop shadow, and I'm going to increase the blur. So then it just basically lives there, and you wouldn't even think about it, but there's almost like a gradient effect to the drop shadow, where now the picture is clearly set out from the background. It has that nice little clean stroke on the outside, and then it has the bevel. And then you would use your type tool. So you can do that a couple ways. You can click here and click empty or text. I mean, you could say things like "We miss you." And I'm not crazy about that color of text, so I'm going to change it to white to match the outline. And I'm also not crazy about that font because Arial is the death of me. And I kind of like that one it flashed to. Good to find a good font. This one's pretty sweet, actually. Bring it up, rotate it a little, increase the size. Now that I think about that font, it looks a little bit too much like, I don't know, something I don't want on my fonts. Like someone's about to come at me with an axe. So let's get back in here and change it. That's nice. All right, so then you would have your postcard. So basically, this is what you're looking for. Image on top of another image on the layers palette over here. And if you're like, hey, I can only see this, right? Well, it's because your layers are out of order. So make sure whatever you want on the top of the layers palette's on the top, middle, bottom. So your 3 levels of layers where you have text, a picture that has a stroke and a drop shadow, and then I could add a drop shadow to this text even. So if you look here, if I go to filter, I don't know if it would work. I would probably have to rasterize it. So yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of a tricky thing to do a drop shadow on text. Basically, if you rasterize it, you could use it. All right, cool. Well, have a great day, and I'll look forward to seeing your postcards and where you want to travel to. Put yourself in the role of a person who wants to travel somewhere. See you later.